The last week was tough for Johnson. More details emerged about Downing Street parties. Cummings said he'd pledge under oath that the Prime Minister was lying about having no prior knowledge about the 20th of May garden party, and Cummings was approached by Sue Gray to give evidence for the inquiry. People in Westminster and the media speculated that Johnson would face a vote of no confidence in his leadership from his own party, something that ultimately hasn't come to fruition. Yet. So in this video we're going to be looking at what's happened, what might happen next, and why this wasn't, despite much speculation, the end for Johnson. But before we get into that, if you want to always remember the parties we weren't invited to, check out the number 10 Parties Tour shirt and posters. And 50% goes to the National Emergencies Trust COVID appeal. The link is in the description below. So, as we've detailed in numerous videos on the channel, for the past month or so Boris Johnson has been swamped by allegations of various number 10 parties, while the rest of the country was in lockdown. The man once known for his electability now has a personal approval rating of -25. Labour has a steady 9-point lead over the Conservative Party, and polls from Opinion and YouGov found that about 60% of the public think he should resign. Now, unsurprisingly, there's been a lot of talk about whether Johnson should or will resign, but Johnson has made it clear that he has no plans of resigning himself. This leaves it up to Conservative MPs. If 15% of Conservative MPs, which, given that they currently have 360 seats in the Commons, comes to 54 MPs, send in letters of no confidence to the 1922 committee, then this triggers a no confidence vote in the leader of the Conservative Party. Now, no one actually knows how many letters have been sent in until the 15% threshold has been reached, because the 1922 committee is led by a man called Sir Graham Brady, who never leaks. And by never, we really mean never. In fact, he didn't even tell his wife how many letters had come in for Theresa May back in 2018. Nonetheless, for the past week or so, the best connected journalists in Westminster estimated that between 20 and 35 letters had been sent in to the 1922. On Monday, though, things started to go downhill. Johnson tried to start the week with Operation Red Meat, a series of right-wing policy announcements intended to distract from Partygate and appease the right of the party. Also on Monday, his former Chief of Staff Dominic Cummings alleged that Johnson had in fact known about the drinks party on May the 20th and had, quote, waved it aside. If Cummings is telling the truth, then Johnson would have lied to Parliament, which is, at least according to the ministerial code, a resigning matter. Then, on Tuesday, Johnson gave a frankly quite odd interview with Beth Rigby of Sky News, where he denied Cummings' allegations and claimed that nobody told him that the party was against the rules.
So I want to just say to you on that point, nobody told me that what we were doing was, as you say, against the rules, that the event in question was something that we were going to do something that wasn't a work event.
Which led to another set of unflattering headlines. On the same day, a group of about 20 Conservative MPs who were first elected in 2019 held a meeting where they discussed whether they should send their letters in, coined the pork pie plot by the Daily Mail. No one knows exactly what happened here, but at least according to the reports, most of them decided that they'd be sending their letters in. This might sound surprising. After all, many of the 2019 intake owe their jobs to Johnson. But given that Johnson's poll ratings are especially bad in marginal and red wall seats, they probably realised that they wouldn't be in a job much longer if he was still leader at the next election. That evening, Rishi Sunak, the bookies' favourite to succeed Johnson, then suspiciously refused to give Johnson his full backing in an interview that evening.
If the Prime Minister lied and lied to Parliament, he should resign, shouldn't he?
Well, I'm not going to get into hypotheticals. The ministerial code is clear on these matters, but as you know, Sue Gray is conducting an inquiry into the situation. I think it's right that we allow her to conclude that job.
And you support, you support the Prime Minister unequivocally?
And it was revealed that someone, presumably Liz Truss, had recently bought the domain inlizwetrust.co.uk. Later that night, there were even reports that the threshold had been met and that Brady would make an announcement on Wednesday morning. This, though, didn't happen, meaning that the threshold had still not been met. Later on Wednesday at noon, Prime Minister's questions took place. While it already looked to be a remarkably exciting one, something happened right before that really took everyone, including us, by surprise. A Tory MP defected to Labour. This is already bad news for Johnson. It really exacerbates the feeling of crisis among his MPs. But what makes it even worse is that the MP, Christian Wakeford, a Red Wall Tory elected in 2019, crossed the floor literally minutes before Starmer and Johnson went toe-to-toe. Obviously, this gave Starmer ammunition on a day where it seemed like he really didn't need it. Throughout PMQ, Starmer seemed very confident in himself, got some decent jokes in, and largely seemed in control. The Prime Minister seemed to repeat his wait for Sue Gray defence many times, presumably for two reasons. First, to not say anything that may inadvertently lead to a negative headline, and to try and reinforce to his MPs that they should wait for the report, as it could exonerate him. One particularly notable intervention at PMQs came from David Davis, who urged the Prime Minister to resign.
So I'll remind him of a quotation altogether too familiar to him of Leo Amery to Neville Chamberlain. You have sat there too long for all the good you have done. In the name of God, go.
Needless to say, this demonstrates just how bad Prime Minister's questions was for the Prime Minister, and just how successful Starmer appeared to be. Despite Starmer's success at PMQs, Tory MPs clearly didn't buy into his arguments as much as he'd hoped. There were reports late on Wednesday and early on Thursday that some Tory MPs had even started taking their letters back. Some have even suggested that this was actually prompted by the defection of Christian Wakeford to Labour. The argument goes that this prompted Tory MPs to band together and rethink their decision to try and unseat their leader. There have also been reports that the Tory whips blackmailed rebellious MPs, specifically by refusing to give necessary funds to constituencies.
A number of members of Parliament have faced pressures and intimidation from members of the government because of their declared or assumed desire for a vote of confidence in the party leadership of the Prime Minister, in threatening to withdraw investments from members of Parliament's constituencies which are funded from the public purse, encouraging the publication of stories in the press seeking to embarrass those who they suspect of lacking confidence in the Prime Minister is similarly unacceptable.
While some MPs may have seen this as the last straw, like Wakeford, others may have felt beaten into submission. At the time of writing, the letter threshold has still not been met, and any momentum has slowed hugely. Right now, it seems that the most likely time for Tories to start handing their letters back into Brady will be after Sue Gray's report is published. It all depends, though, on what the outcome is. As we mentioned earlier, Gray's decided to include Cummings in the investigation, which is likely bad news for the Prime Minister. For the last few weeks, he's posted updates on his Substack which claim that Johnson did have prior knowledge about the parties and was warned that they would break the rules. The fact that his point of view will be considered increases the potential damage of the report to Johnson. If the report is damaging and it shows that Johnson broke the law and or misled Parliament, then there's a good chance that the rebellion's momentum will pick back up and the 54-letter threshold could be breached. If this happens, then there's a vote of no confidence held by Tory MPs. If more than 50% of them vote against Johnson, then this triggers a leadership election in which Johnson isn't allowed to run. But even if less than 50% vote against Johnson and he survives, this is still probably the end for Johnson. Once a substantial fraction of your party has expressed no confidence in you, then you're usually living on borrowed time. This is what happened to Theresa May in December 2018. She survived the no-confidence vote, with 63% of Conservative MPs supporting her, but everyone knew that this was the end for her, and she duly resigned in May 2019, after coming fifth in the European elections. The point we're making is that while Johnson could hypothetically survive the confidence vote, if it was to happen, leaders rarely recover from that sort of thing. But what do you think? Will the 54-letter threshold be met in the next few days? Or has Johnson survived by the skin of his teeth? As always, let us know your thoughts in the comments below. People across the UK have been furious about the parties held at number 10. We were locked at home and not allowed to see loved ones while they partied. So if you want to remember the parties we missed and get money to those in need of COVID support, then check out our number 10 parties tour shirt and posters. They feature all the parties that we know about so far and hopefully look pretty cool too. The link's in the description, and 50% of the profits go to the National Emergencies Trust COVID appeal, which helps those in the UK whose lives were affected during the pandemic. Thanks for your support. As always, be sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon to be notified every time we release a video. Special thanks to our Patreon backers who make videos like this possible, and if you want to see your name at the end of the videos, then sign up by clicking the link below.